Eager to learn more about the food they eat, a group of new scholars gather at a friend's house to acquire some practical skills butchering 4 lambs. None of us knew exactly what we were doing, but with the help of a few instructional YouTube videos, we were ready to give it a try. Basically, all we needed was lots of fridge space, a large table, a meat grinder, a hacksaw, some sharp boning knives, and a cleaver.
And they finished out just slightly heavier than we were expecting. Even the head butcher though at the abattoir was saying that they're really nice looking lambs.
The lambs were purchased from our friend Mark of Kawartha Ecological Growers and were brought into Toronto bright and early one Saturday morning. As you can see, the lambs were already cut into sides for us. The next task was getting the lambs out of the truck and into the house ready for butchering. Some were less enthusiastic than others at first.
Ian's skepticism.
In a few minutes, however, all the lambs were inside, and the rest of the work breaking down the sides into individual cuts was up to us. Cutting the sides into 3 sections required a fair bit of space, so we opted to use a properly sanitized table in the backyard. The hind or leg section is cut at the end of the hip bone. It's important to make the cuts perpendicular to the line of the spine in order to keep each section separate. Since we didn't have a proper bone saw, we used a regular hacksaw. Not everything went perfectly. Next was to cut the mid and 4 sections apart. This is done by counting 5 ribs back from the front of the lamb and cutting between the 5th and 6th ribs. Again, perpendicular cuts are important to keep the sections separate. Because the knives are nice and sharp, safety is very important.
It's a little nervous when you see knives just sawing towards you.
With the careful guidance of Jim Clifford, we got comfortable making the right cuts, getting the knives to do what we wanted them to, and switching back and forth between the right blade for the right job. Last was the neck. It wasn't too hard to figure out where to cut it off. Pretty soon we had the lambs cut into hind sections, mid sections, and 4 sections. Once back inside, we worked together to further break the sections down into cuts of meat you'd buy at the store. Here you can see Jim finishing a leg roast. Note the hip bone that was cut in. And here, Jay works on a French rack of lamb. Nothing went to waste. Here Dan is taking off any last good bits of meat from the bones. All these scraps were collected up, and here Andrew put some through the meat grinder to make ground lamb. When we were done, everything looked pretty familiar. At the end of the day, all the cuts were divided up evenly, and there was no longer any way of knowing which cuts had come from which lambs. Everyone learned a lot. And although it was quite a lot of work,
It's the most honest work I've done in 3 years.
we all agreed.
That is a lot of fun.
So if you're interested, get some friends together and try it yourself. It's easier than you think to learn where your food comes from.